in your vocabulary, okay, should have a section for vocabulary, most of you do. Systems of equations are just two or more related algebraic equations. When I say related, they have the same variables. Callan, you write this stuff down. So also in your vocabulary, the solution to systems of equations. When you have a system of equations, the solution is the value or values that make all the equations true. All right, so the method's been, so far, we've graphed systems of equations in order to find their solutions. We do that by writing the equation in form y equals mx plus b, and then we graph it. The intersect is the point we call the solution. Today and tomorrow, we're going to talk about two different methods for solving these things. We can solve them by two algebra methods. One is called substitution, and the other one is elimination. Today I'm going to talk to you about substitution. Tomorrow, I will send you a YouTube clip that has the notes on it that you need to take notes, just like I'm here. All right, that'll have this information on it about elimination. Today we're just going to talk about substitution. Write this process down. This is the process for solving by substitution. I'm going to give you some examples of how we do that. The very first thing we do is we look at the two equations. We look at the two equations, and if we can see one of those equations is already solved for a variable, that's the key to know that, hey, we use substitution here to solve this. We can substitute that value into the other equation. Again, we've got two equations. Just write this down. It may not make that much sense to you right now. When we do the examples, it'll make more sense. So if one of the equation is solved for a variable, we can substitute that value into the other equation. Using that solution, we find the other variable. Here's an example. We want to solve the system of equations where you have two equations. There's two here, 4x plus 6y equals 10, and x equals negative 2y plus 2. The answer is always going to be something like that, x comma y, okay? Always. So we have to find out what x is, and we have to find out what y is. The thing that tips you off in this one that you want to use substitution is that this equation down here is already solved for one of the variables. In other words, the variable is all by itself. So we know in this equation that x equals negative 2y plus 2. And we're going to use that information to figure out what y is equal to. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to substitute. That's why it's called the substitution method. We're going to take that and we're going to put it inside the other equation in place of x. Because x is equal to negative 2y plus 2, I can put negative 2y plus 2 in place of x in that other equation. That's why it's called substitution. So let's work this out carefully. Notice I put negative 2y plus 2 in place of x in that equation. Now I have 4 times, in parentheses, negative 2y plus 2, then plus the 6y equals 10. This is just a regular basic algebra problem now, you guys. Right? We use the distributive property. We take the 4 times negative 2y. What do you get? Negative 8y. And the 4 times the 2 gives you 8. So I can get rid of those parentheses. So I have negative 8y plus 8 plus 6y equals 10. Now, that next step, I combine like terms. There's 2 sets of y, so I can take the negative 8y and the 6y, and I get negative 2y. So I have negative 2y plus 8 equals 10. Subtract 8 from both sides. So the answer, then we're going to come down here, negative 2y equals 2, divide by negative 2, and we get the answer, y is equal to negative 1. Okay, now you're halfway there, right? All you got to do is find x. What we're going to do is take that value of y and put it into that equation right there. Figure out what x is.
So it'll be x equal to negative 2 times negative 1.
Yep. So you're going to substitute that in there. There's the equation we're going to substitute. We're going to put negative 1 in place of y because we know that that's what y is equal to. Y is equal to negative 1. So I'm going to put that in place of y. And now I just go through and solve it. Negative 2 times negative 1 is 2. 2 plus 2. So x equals 4. When x is equal to 4, now your final answer to this thing is this point right here. 4, negative 1. All right? Negative 4x minus 5y equals negative 8. Again, we know that we're going to use substitution because of this equation right here. If y equals negative 4x minus 8, I can take this and put it in place of y. Okay, and that's what I've done here. Notice we've got y, 5 times y, and now I've just put negative 4x minus 8 in place. All right, so what happens when you use the distributive property here? What do you get when you take that times negative 4x? Plus 20x, right? And if you take this, and I'm saying that's negative 5 times negative 8, is what? Positive 40. So there you go. I've gotten rid of the parentheses. This is where your biggest mistakes are going to be, right here. Be careful. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and combine like terms. Cam, if he wants to subtract 40, he can subtract 40 right now. It doesn't really matter. I combined them. I get 16x plus 40 equals negative 8. No, because negative 4x plus 20x is positive 16x. Okay? So now we're going to subtract 40 from both sides. We get down here, you get 16x equals negative 48. That's 16 times x, so we divide by 16. It comes down to x is equal to negative 3. All right, now we take this negative 3. And we're going to put it right inside there to figure out what y is. All right, so negative 3 times negative 4. Positive 12. I heard somebody say the answer is 20. I think that, again, negative. Be careful. Negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. 12 minus 8 is 4. So your answer is the point negative 3, negative 3, positive 4. Yes, ma'am.
If the problem that's like on the bottom, if it says y equals, shouldn't it like what we saw first in the green, shouldn't that be y?
Look, we put this in place of y so we could solve for x. So we solved this whole equation right here was all x's. So we solved for x on that one. We put that in place of x here so we can figure out what y is. Okay? All right, look, I've got one more problem here. I want you to work it out on your own. Now I want to come around when you have it done. I want you to solve this system of equations right here by substitution. Okay? And then when you do that, I want to know what the answer you get is. And when you get that done, then you can go on to work on the con problems, which is this. It's called systems of equations with substitution.